I'm sorry.
Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Why would you do that?
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I've never been more sorry.
It's fine. You don't have to be sorry. You don't have to be sorry. It's fine. It's fine that you're sorry. Do you know why you don't have to be sorry? It's because it's a magical day.
On Banquet at the Flum dumpster.
How drab, how dull critique can be. It's begging and pleading for apathy. The good, the bad, the in-between. And nothing is everyone's cup of tea. No time to waste, there's things to do. But Jared and Eric are happy too. They'll suffer the worst of films for you. So enter the strangest of banquet rooms.
Welcome, friends and neighbors. Today is a fateful occasion.
We've found something for you.
We've found something fateful. We have found something fateful for us because this is an essential piece of bad cinema that, by some stretch of the imagination, we have not seen yet.
It's kind of remarkable. This is one that's been on our list for a very long time.
For a very long time, and I feel like I need to apologize to our followers because I feel like they must be questioning our legitimacy as experts in this topic right now, because between the two of us, we have never watched a single film by Neil Breen.
And I do want to clarify. At one point, we have a spreadsheet of bad movies, and this was one of the ones we put on very very near the top, but it was highlighted in purple for a long time.
Because we couldn't find it. That was right.
Yeah, means we could not find a copy of it anywhere. I looked at the local video store, on all the streaming services, nowhere to be found. I remember there was like a way of buying it, but like the DVD was an insane hundreds of dollars price, and we were like, okay, we get he's important, but not that important maybe. And so that's, I think, contributed to the fact that we've kind of ignored this guy, and I do feel bad about it.
Yeah.
He gets talked about a lot.
Until a fateful day a few weeks ago where I found the film through a means that I will not explicitly state on the internet.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do we know about Neil Breen walking into his like magnum opus is what I'm expecting this to be. So,
Fateful Findings is one of his like 5 movies, I think. He self-funds all his movies. Has a bit of a cult following.
Sorry, self-funds, and he has 5 movies. That's impressive to begin with. I mean, I haven't seen the movie yet, but
depending on what the budget looks like, because Tommy Wiseau self-funding the Room, that is kind of impressive because that costs like millions of dollars, and that's like early 2000s millions of dollars, and this is like, we'll see exactly how much funding this needs.
But like the funding for The Room came from like suspicious and unspecified sources, I understand. Do we know where the funding for Neil Breen's masterpiece comes from?
So he's, I based on my small amount of research, small amount of research.
Listeners, I would like to draw attention. We have done research for this podcast. We
have a small amount. He
perusing his IMDb page,
and other little articles here and there. We've determined that he seems to be a real estate agent / architect / computer scientist / might have a PhD in quantum physics.
What do you mean might have a PhD in quantum physics?
Okay, it says it in one place. Does that mean it's true?
What does it mean to maybe have a PhD in quantum physics? Is that like Schrodinger's cat, but like Schrodinger's PhD in quantum physics?
I think that what it means to me is that somebody out there has said that he has it, but this guy has a cult following. A cult following could definitely pretend like somebody has a degree in quantum physics. And the fact that he doesn't credit himself as Dr. Neil Breen, it's suspicious. I want to see a doctor if he has a PhD. Okay?
That is the type of thing that that a cult following would do. I would like to start claiming that David Dakota has a PhD in quantum physics.
Exactly.
I would like to start claiming that Mr. Fuzzy Pants, the cat from 9 Lives, has a PhD in quantum physics. Can I have a PhD in quantum physics and film studies? But like, can I double up?
Yeah, no, I think a double doctor. That's
Yeah.
a thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that you add a second doctor if you do that?
Like
if you get 2 PhDs?
Like Dr. Breen?
Yes.
I mean, considering I've never met anyone who referred to themselves as Doctor anything.
Well, have you met somebody with 2 PhDs?
No, but have you?
No, that's the thing. I don't think there are enough people out there. But if you meet them, do they have the double doctor?
I mean, to be fair, if I had 2 PhDs, I would insist that everybody refer to me as Dr. Jared.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, you have to...
But
there has to be the type of person who would both devote themselves to actually getting 2 PhDs and then still have either the sense of humor or just the strange ego to need the double doctor. Like, that's who we're looking for, and I don't know, you know?
We've gotten ourselves onto a bit of a tangent because we kind of don't know what to say about this movie, because we kind of don't really know what we're expecting, do we?
No, we have no idea, other than the fact that, like, so this is one of his films, and, like, a lot of them are in some way discussed, but this, I think, is the one that gets talked about the most. Because it's not his first, and it's not, like, his last, I think it's, like, his fourth, but it's particularly well known. And that's what's interesting to me about it, is that it's, like, he got 3 movies out there that were all in some way known, and then this is the one that topped it. So we're coming in on this one. And I think that's what's going to be interesting, is thinking, okay, this is the perspective that a lot of people have walking into it. Because if this is the one that most people see, most people haven't seen the other 3.
Yeah.
So we're coming in the way that a lot of people do. And that's just exciting to me.
Yeah, I'm particularly excited because I feel like most of the time when we walk into a movie not knowing what to expect, we're usually anticipating something painful. But today I feel like I'm almost guaranteed a good time.
I hope so. Like this is talked about in the conversations of like The Room, and like Ed Wood, which some of those are a lot of fun, some of those are painful. So I don't know what to think about the Ed Wood comparison. That's the thing. We've seen a lot of his, and it's just
hit and miss.
They go back and forth.
Yeah, but I'm hopeful that we come out of this finding fatefully a definitive Nanar. That's my legitimate expectation walking into this movie.
I'm like in the mood for something that's so bad it's good, and I feel like that's when you want to watch an Nanar. You want to be able to like be receptive to it, and I feel like I'm there right now. I'm excited.
Then I think there's no time like the present. Let's get down to Fateful Findings.
Perfect.
If you, too, dear listener, have not been able to find Fateful Findings yet and wanted to find Fateful Findings, you will find spoilers for Fateful Findings after this fatefully short musical interlude. Do you think I said find enough?
No. I think we need to say more.
I think we need to redo the whole thing.
Remember remain on the edge of your seat. In a moment, your host will return with the fruits of their suffering. Every last thought that is currently buffering too. The time has arrived, their opinions will now debut.
Hello there, friends. I'm just here to deliver a quick content warning that there will be some brief discussion of suicide around 35-ish minutes in the timestamp of this episode. And if that's something that will make your day less of a good time for whatever reason, feel free to take any appropriate measures that you feel will help to accommodate for that. That's all. Back to the episode.
This was worth the wait.
Oh my goodness, this was incredible.
I love this movie. I love it. I love everything about it. I want to watch all 4 of this this auteur's...
This artist. We don't know if he's an
artist.
auteur, but I hope that at least some of the stylistic magnificence of Fateful Findings spills out into his other works, because this was marvelous. I'm going to say right now to our dear listener, please watch this movie.
Yes.
We are about to spoil everything. I'm repeating that because there's so much to talk about here, and it's best
Or
to...
as they would say in this movie, we're going to spoil it. We're spoiling it. We're going to spoil it. We will spoil it.
This is a movie that's best to walk in knowing absolutely nothing about what you're signing yourself up for.
It's great.
I am so happy that I didn't learn anything about Neil Breen or this movie walking into it, because the experience was phenomenal.
It was.
Where do we even want to start?
Okay, we're starting on the spoiler section now. I think I want to start right at the end.
With the credits?
With the credits, because I think that one of the things that most stands out about this movie is how, from, like, you watch this movie and you kind of feel like he's taking it seriously, and then you're like, yeah, this is this guy who wants to act, write, direct in this movie, and then you get to the point in the credits where he's credited a bunch of companies for these other things, like catering, like
sound
casting, sound design, all of these things, and you'll notice that they're all like, eats, catering, and then it gets to the bottom and it says, all of the companies credited with an N or a B are fictitious, and it was actually Neil Breen. And you're like, why? Why would you go to the trouble of doing that? It makes no sense. And that's this movie in a nutshell. This movie is essentially, this whole movie, you're going, why? What? Why would anybody? What?
I think, yeah, okay. I want... So in our very first episode, we talked about how in my research into badness, I've kind of separated the word bad into 2 main themes. Mm-hmm. One that describes the word as being used to articulate a tool for reception, and another one that is a category of aesthetics. And I think that I need to do a little bit of elaborating on that in order to describe the aesthetic experience of Fateful Findings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think that this is one that really lends itself to, like, a conversation about how it breaks, like, that, what I call, like, the cinematic illusion, where, like, what you're watching, you're suddenly feeling like, oh no, I'm taken out of it. Mm. Because, like, I know that I'm watching a movie. Like, you have that sensation.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what you were talking about.
Yeah, so, like, the thing that I kind of asked myself when working on this MA thesis was like, what is it about incompetence that I can, like, there is a specific aesthetic that reads as incompetent filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
And finding the language to describe that is difficult without framing it through the filmmaker's own incompetence, because it's possible to achieve this aesthetic while still being competent, and it's also the type of thing that's like, it makes for more flexible, more effective language if we can describe it as a feature that the text holds, rather than as a part of the circumstances of its production.
And I think that this particular movie lends itself so well because, like, he is the director, writer, and actor.
Yeah.
All rolled into one.
But again, this is not about him. This is about the text that we just watched.
But no, what I just want to say, though, is there is something specific about how when you're watching this movie and you realize that it seems like there's an actor struggling to deliver the lines written by the writer, because it's like, oh, I don't know what the writer was trying to say here, but it's the same person.
Anyways, so the word that I came up with, or phrase, or whatever you want to call it, to describe this aesthetic experience is transparency of production. That is, when you look at the thing that you're watching and you feel like you see the material circumstances of how it was produced in every moment. Or not in every moment, in specific moments, in isolated moments. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense to you because we've talked about this before, but I hope that this makes sense to our listener. So it's the type of thing where, like, when you look at a scene and you look at the way that an actor is struggling to read the lines that they've been written, and you imagine the circumstances.
That they've written.
Yeah. But like, when you imagine the circumstance of, oh, this actor must have been struggling with these lines, I can see the actor trying to act and struggling with these lines. You are reminded of the material circumstances by which the film was produced. Like, traditional film language is designed to be kind of invisible, to not remind you that you're watching something that's constructed. And so when you are unintentionally, or in a way that you perceive as unintentional, reminded that the thing that you are watching is somebody else making that reality, such as in the scene with the car crash, where the editing makes it completely impossible to tell where anything is in physical space.
Yeah, well, it's like the editing and the directing, and that's in, like, I also would say it doesn't just in, like, one specific aspect that this one has it. It's in every aspect.
It's
because like what you're saying is, like, it's in the acting, in the writing, in the editing. There are so many scenes that just suddenly cut off. Mm-hmm. Just like in the basically in the middle of a sentence almost. Like, not like it seems like somebody's about to speak, and then you cut to, like, the next day. And you're like, this makes that, like, you are lost and disoriented, and there's just this sense of, like, what I'm watching makes no sense, and that's the only thing I'm focused on right now.
Yeah, stylistically, this entire film it felt like a student film in places. And I've used, like, student cinema to explore transparency in production in the past. And like, one of the things that they say is that one of the strongest markers of amateur cinema is bad sound. Mm-hmm. And there was like constant throughout this movie, just like inconsistent room tones and like cuts that like cut between like within the same space, but like the sound is so totally different. There was one scene where there was just like really heavy breathing coming from behind the camera, but neither of the two characters in frame were visibly breathing. It's like,
well, I also would want to say, like, the sound, I frequently thought you were pausing the video because the sound would just suddenly cut in the middle of a scene. Like, it was like somebody would talk, sound cut. Then somebody would talk, like, it would come back in and out, and you were like, did it just pause? Like, did Jared just pause it? Is he trying to say something to me? And it's like, no, it's just, this is just how it is. And it's the one, like, it's one aspect of the film that I felt like, because most of it, like, it wasn't like all of the sound was bad and it was like hard to watch, you know? Mm-hmm. There, like, I was able to understand all of the lines. That wasn't the problem. It was just this lingering thing in the background. Because if you have, like, the entire movie, they all sound like they're underwater, that becomes a painful film. That becomes painful to watch because you're like, all of the sound is bad. But when they get it slightly right, it just falls in that sweet spot.
I think that slightly right is giving this film way too much credit.
No,
like,
I don't. I say slightly right.
I don't think there was anything
like,
about this that was right. I don't think that they had an external microphone. I think that they were exclusively using the sound that came from the camera.
No, like, I think that there was a lot that worked just enough. Because think about, like, Things. You remember Things?
Vaguely, yeah.
Where, like, the entire movie is basically inaudible and it takes place entirely in the dark and everything looks kind of blue, and you can't tell what's going on because it's impossible to see anything on screen. That was just so frustrating. Where all of the lighting was completely flat, all of the rooms looked the same, and you're like, this is boring and poorly done, but I get what's happening, and I can therefore appreciate all of the other badness that much better. Like, there'd be so much that I was missing of the acting if you couldn't hear it at least that much. You couldn't hear all the lines. That's what I mean by getting it slightly right. It's in that, like, if you're at the, like, 5% level of correctness, you can appreciate all of those other aspects' failures. And it's fascinating.
Well, I think that what we're kind of getting at is that, like, you're describing this as if it exists on a spectrum, but I think that it's better articulated as, like, these are two very different aesthetic experiences that get lumped in under the umbrella category of bad. Because it's one thing to not be able to figure out what's going on and to not be able to, like, physically follow or perceive the text. It's another thing entirely to perceive the text, but also perceive the layer underneath it of how it was constructed. And I think that again, to use my own terminology, transparency of production is a thing, like, is an aesthetic experience that we often use the word bad to talk about, that I think is more useful when we identify it for what it is. But putting the film theory aside, let's get back to dragging this movie. Because I want to talk about how Neil Breen comes from the same Tommy Wiseau school of thought regarding the appearance of his own naked body.
I mean, he loves his own shoulders and upper chest area specifically.
No, his ass was fully visible multiple times.
Yes,
this is the same, like, it felt like the same attitude of, I need to show my ass or this film won't sell.
No, there was that, but there were just multiple scenes where people got just slightly naked. Like, just taking their shirt off a little bit. And there were just, like, there was nudity from all of the main cast members, but nothing that was actually explicit. And it was mesmerizing in that way.
I think the first, like...
You could technically not give this an R rating.
I think the first, like, quote-unquote sex scene in this movie, I think I turned to you after it finished and said, was that written by a fourth grader?
Yes.
Because it was the type of thing where, like, Neil Breen, because Neil Breen stars in his own movie, and the character's wife, they, like... they have a fight, and then she comes up to him in his office that's full of, like, 5 different laptop computers for no reason.
Yeah. And a lot of books and papers and stuff. Like, this desk is crowded with stuff.
And then she says, I'm done talking. And then Neil Breen looks really, really happy and just picks up a piece of paper and woo, throws it behind him. And then he picks up a book and woo, and then he picks up a laptop and just throws it on the floor.
He just starts slowly grabbing one laptop at a time, dropping it to the floor, then he clears the whole desk, and after clearing the entire desk, do you know what they do?
What do they do, Eric?
They just stand there and don't touch the desk. That was just extended desk clearing foreplay that didn't lead to anything.
Oh no, it did lead to something, Eric.
It didn't lead to anything on the desk.
No, they didn't lead to anything on the desk, but they stood there, robotically caressed each other, and gave each other like little
pecks
on the mouth. And then Neil Breen, like, slowly undoes, like, again, the top of her shirt. No, wait, this was the one where they rip each other's shirts off.
Yeah, but rip each other just a little bit.
Just a little
bit.
Just
to show the shoulders. Just to show the shoulders. And then you cut to their feet, which when you see their feet, they're in the wrong places. Like, I'm pretty sure that they were reversed. And then they like, you cut to their feet and you see their clothes falling to the floor.
No, Eric, just their shirts.
Yeah, sorry, just their shirts.
Their shirts. Their pants are still there.
Other significant nudity, the trash cave.
Oh, no, wait, we have to talk about how that one shot of fully clothed feet with 2 shirts dropping to the floor.
Was repeated.
It was like 3 times. It was a motif.
Yeah, it was. It was a motif. And either that or it was done for comedy. Like, there are things in this movie that I feel like you could think for a second, like, oh, this was done for comedy, but it's played so seriously. It's perfect. It's perfect that way.
This was a perfect nanar.
It is.
This was absolutely
perfect.
perfect.
Is. Yeah, it was, like, you watch this and you're like, this is so bad it's good defined. Mm-hmm. Like, you could put this in that list and everyone would get what it means. Mm-hmm. And I love it.
But yeah, you wanted to talk about the trash cave.
Yes, okay, there's this trash cave where he has this recurring dream of himself in this little room, like, where the walls, it looks like they're just layered with trash bags, and then he's, like, cradling this large golden book, and they keep going to this, and nothing comes of it. Nothing comes of this dream. He sees this book on a pedestal in the desert somewhere, and that inspires him, I guess, to give his speech about hacking that makes everybody kill themselves. Like, this movie has everything.
You're getting so far ahead of yourself.
I'm getting far ahead of myself because you have to. There's nothing in this movie that you can hold back on.
But, like, I feel like I want to take it one thing at a time because there's so much to say about each thing. Like, the trash cave, the weird, surreal way that, like, objects and rocks and dice and human feet would just like fade in and out. Like, it feels to me like if Tommy Wiseau was trying to make a streetcar named Desire when he made The Room, like, this feels very David Lynch. It feels like Neil Breen was trying to make like Twin Peaks.
Yeah. Because, like, there are these, like, slightly supernatural elements. Mm-hmm. It's, like, almost magical realism, if you want to call it that and give it the fancy term. But it's not. It's like, there's just, he can walk through walls sometimes. The Rock makes a short cameo as his little friend.
By which, do you mean The Rock as in Dwayne The Rock Johnson?
Yes. You watch this movie, expect to see The Rock. He comes in, just wait till the end. He's in there.
Dear listener, Dwayne The Rock Johnson is not in this movie. Eric is referring to a literal stone. Thank you.
Okay. We can. Jared obviously wasn't watching closely. There are other things. Something I alluded to before was how David Dakota, we always talk about how David Dakota expands his movies through long credit sequences and montages so he can get to 90 minutes.
I mean, we talk about that amongst ourselves. We haven't always talked about that on this podcast yet.
No, but like we talk about it with ourselves. Yeah. This is a thing that he always does in all of his movies. He wants to get to 90 minutes, and that's clearly why he just puts in these scenes. This movie does that by having every line said 3 times in slightly different ways the entire movie, where somebody will be like, no, don't do that. Why would you do that? You don't have to do that. And like it's this subtle thing that the first time you hear it, you're like, okay, that's a little odd that you had to say it all 3 times that way. But when every single scene that happens, you're like, no, I think you had a script for a 40-minute movie, barely, and you just said, okay, he can say this 3 times and that'll just be his thing. And then, oh, we're still not there? Other characters will also have that be their thing too. I also, if we're talking about motifs, the throwing books at the computers.
Or just like in general, taking anything that was at one point on a desk and then throwing it onto the floor.
Just picking it up and throwing it. Sometimes it would just be like, he'll just pick up his phone, he'll look at it, and just throw it. It's just, he was an expert in the method acting of throwing.
Yeah.
He's a master in all types of ways, but that I would say is his special skill that other directors don't have. And actors.
Yeah, so you mentioned his speech at the end, where because he's hang on, he's got a master's, the character, not Neil Breen, who we've established as a doctor. The character, Dylan, has a master's degree in computer science and is currently trying to write a novel. But then around a third of the way through the movie, he gives up writing his novel and devotes all of his time to hacking. And by hacking...
I think you're misrepresenting it. I think that was meant to be a twist. I think the twist was what he was always doing. He was never writing the novel. He was always hacking.
Oh.
Because he was saying, like, there was no book. He kept saying that. There's no book. I'm not writing a book. I've been hacking into every government and every corporation.
But he had written a novel before.
Yeah, he'd written a novel before, but remember he kept saying, like, he kept calling people were calling him, they were, like, begging him, like, no, we need the novel. And he was like, I'm not writing a book. And he was pushing them off. Why? Because he was never writing a book. He was hacking.
And he was hacking into governments and corporations to find all of banks and insurance companies and everything to find all of their dirty little secrets about the I have notes here: cheating, lying, and hypocrisy.
Yes. And then at the end, he makes this impassioned speech in front of a green screen. And then there's a canned applause that plays after everything, so you know he's in public. Because he's in front of that like 4 microphones set up that you have at news conferences, obviously. And then whenever they cut to the crowd, you don't see a full crowd of people clapping. You see either a shot of a camera, like just a bunch of like video cameras lined up, or a gaggle of like 5 people dressed in suits that then those 5 people also speak, and as they're speaking, you see them kill themselves. Just, I don't exactly know how to put this in a way that doesn't make it sound like a serious thing, but it is comical. Like, it is the most comical way you can have somebody kill themselves in a movie.
But it's like each one uses a slightly different method.
Well, not each one. 2 of them just shoot themselves in the head.
No, that's why I say slightly. One of them shoots themselves in the head, the other shoots themselves in the throat.
Oh, I see, yeah.
And then everyone else has, like,
a little different thing,
something
yeah.
different. Someone hangs themselves, someone... we don't need to get into all of the details, but...
No, because you're going to watch this movie, dear listener. I know you are. There is no way you're not going to, because it will find you.
It's fate.
It is.
It is fate that this movie will find you.
I think we're getting near the end here, but I do want to wrap up with the very beginning of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because I want to talk about how in the first 30 seconds, I knew we were in for something great. I'm not talking about the credits, which were great. The opening credits were great, but just the first 30 seconds where you see the 2 kids wandering through the forest. Then you see the disembodied skull slowly turn to follow them, and you're like, okay, something's going on.
I'm sorry, Eric, what kind of skull was that? What animal?
It's some kind of bovine animal. I would guess probably a prairie cow or a bison.
I just feel like it's important for the sake of our listeners to clarify that it was not, in fact, a human skull.
No, it was bovine by nature, yes.
Okay, continue.
And then I think they walk into this glen. They find a mushroom, to which they respond, "Oh, look, a mushroom!" And then the mushroom very, very slowly turns into like a little holder for a box. And then they open the box. They each get a couple of rocks. One of them makes a bracelet with a bunch of little rocks, and then he gets his little black rock that follows him throughout his life. And then for some reason, she writes on this journal page, like over the whole journal page, "It's a magical day." And while she says that, she also just says, "It's a magical day." And then then you cut, like, you go into the future, and she's still carrying this journal page. Like, the journal she apparently carries with her everywhere, and nothing else is written in this journal except for this one page where over, like, right in the middle of the page, not following the lines or anything, this is a ruled notebook that she's just written, "It's a magical day," and she carries that with her entire life. And it's just, that was the moment that I knew this is an art. And it's that quick.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can know within 30 seconds, I think.
I think so. And I think that, like, not every nanar has that, like, aesthetic of transparency to it. But
No.
I think that a lot of the really good ones do. Like the Rooms or the Birdemics or the, like, there is that sense of being able to see through just a little bit through the narrative into how it was made, and you see so many flaws, feels like the wrong word.
No, I think it's right.
But
Because they are clearly perceivable as flaws.
But Eric, I think that you have touched on what we have learned today.
Well, before we get to that, I do want to say, what you were saying about Nanars, there are also very few that carry it through to the end the way this one does.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of Nanars that, like, 1 hour into the runtime, you're kind of getting sick of it.
Yeah.
That didn't happen with me.
No, me neither. I was fully on board the whole way through.
But sorry, you were saying.
Yes, I was saying that I think that what we've learned today is that you should always play with mysterious mushrooms that you find in the forest.
Yeah. That was a fateful finding.
It was.
I think...
That's where the title of the movie comes from.
Well, maybe, because it's Fateful Findings, but I think that was the only fateful finding that I saw.
Wow.
There was only the one. Unless, oh, wait, no. Okay, so they found the mushroom when they were a kid, but then they separated for like 30 years.
And they found each other! That's it. That's the fateful findings. Those are the fateful findings that we found in this fateful movie. Thankfully.
My gosh.
Wow.
I need to watch all of his other movies.
I'm so sad that we're doing this podcast now, and it's the type of thing where, like, I don't want too many Neil Breen episodes too close together, because now I just want to watch all of his movies.
You will get more of these. I'm just letting you know right now, dear listeners. You will be getting more of these.
There will be more of this.
There will be more of these.
But in the meantime, that has been our episode on Neil Breen's magnum opus, Fateful Findings. I have been Jared Aronoff. If you would like to find me on Twitter for whatever reason, you can do so at Jared Aronoff. I'm sure that will be another finding that will be fateful.
I have been Eric Tisch, and if you need me, you can find me hacking into every government and every corporation in the world. Not actually federal government, don't come after me. If you really like us, you can also support us on Patreon at patreon.com/flumdumpster.
Yes. And you can follow the show itself on Twitter at flumdumpster.
Our theme song was lovingly composed by Tarquin Alexander, and you can find her latest album on everywhere.
Everywhere.
You can stream music.
Apple,
everywhere
Spotify, Amazon.
And not just
I
could,
think
you should.
You should
find it.
You should, because it's amazing.
Everywhere.
We lucked out being friends with her. But yeah.
That was the show.
That was the
Thank
show.
you for joining us.
I am going to go get naked in my trash cave.
And I will be getting naked, but only shoulder to chest. Just gonna give it a try. Yeah.
Good luck with that.
Hope you vote.
Hope you vote.
If the concept were to exist that I'm to explain, which it doesn't, in hypothetical terms, every form of art has a bucket, a container to categorize the format and style, the greats and the rotten. The podcast that you've just consumed did the work for you by scraping the bottom